Sveiki, šiandieną Naujausioje Lietuva Amerika serija, o šį kartą kalbamės keturiese. Aš, Žygis, Johannes Volkmann iš CDU ir Michael Roth, buvęs užsienio reikalų komiteto pirmininkas Bundestage iš SPD partijos. Visi susitikome Lietuvoje per Lietuvos Vokietijos forumą, kuris labai aiškiai parodė, Berlynas ne tik bunda, bet ir galimai tampa naujuoju Europos Vašingtonu. Norime mes to ar ne? Kalbame apie daug ką, bet svarbiausia apie tai, kas šiandien griauna Europą iš vidaus. Apie naują sanitarinį kordoną, kurį turime statyti ne tik prieš Putiną, bet ir prieš jo naudingus idiotus Europoje, tai yra Žymaitaitį, AfD ir visas kitas antisemitinės ir prorusiškas jėgas. Visus tuos politinio pelėsio kampelius, kurie bando normalizuoti Kremliaus naratyvus. Be to, kartu kalbėjomės apie gynybą, apie naują Vokietijos realybę ir apie tai, kaip atrodo žemynas, kuriame, tiesą pasakius, JAV atsitraukia ir kur tas automatinis JAV skėtis, tai yra JAV saugumo skėtis, dingsta pamažu. Ir kodėl mūsų santykiai su Berlynu taps lemtingi visam regionui. O jeigu trumpai, tai atviras, gyvas ir labai europietiškas pokalbis keturiese su žmonėmis, kurie nors skirtingų pažiūrų ir partijų puikiai visi vienodai sutinka ir supranta, kad demokratija šiandien gelbsti ne spalvos, ne partijos, o stuburas ir valia. Tad gero klausimo.
Thank you for coming, first of all. And I know Michael for many years. We traveled everywhere together, and you've been one of the first to take the call. And though we are representing different political families, but you've been a family to me. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And Johannes, I met you first time in my life just a month ago or so, and you agreed to come. So I'm also really, grateful to you. And let's start our conversation with Vincentas, who is my co-host and representing the young generation.
Well, thank you very much, and thank both of you for coming to Lithuania and agreeing to talk about both Lithuanian-German relations and, most crucially for our time, about defense. So before we get started, Gis likes to say this very often, but it really does seem like right now Berlin is becoming the new Washington. Is that true? What do you think of that, and is it a good thing?
Unfortunately not, but I extremely appreciate your very kind words. And yes, it's true, we try to take more leadership in Europe, but honestly, neither Germany nor France or another European country can compensate the crucial role for security, peace and stability if it comes to defensiveness and the deterrence of the United States of America. So yes, we achieved a lot thanks to the government, thanks to new fresh faces in our parliament, but it's a long and bumpy road. So leadership is a quite delicate issue, because that is my impression that many citizens in Germany, the whole society, is a bit skeptical about more leadership in Europe. So that is the obligation of the young generation to convince our society that it's in our own interest. And this is the only way to stabilize Europe as a community of peace, democracy and rule of law. And it's the only chance to bring back peace, lasting peace, to Europe.
And what do you have to say about that? I mean, as a representative of the young generation of politics, as I'm sure everybody likes to point out to you all the time, but are Germans really so skeptical when it comes to international outreach and taking the leadership mantle in the region when it comes to defending Europe whole and free?
Well, first of all, I don't think there can be a second Washington, but in the end, we are 450 million Europeans, and so we are, as Europe, the second largest economy in the world. We should be able to defend ourselves as our own responsibility. When it comes to the role of Germany and young Germans, The tide is turning somewhat, in my impression. If you look to polling overall, there's now support for introducing mandatory national service conscription among the broader German public. And I think we have to do more to convince our own public on this. But there's some periods in history when it came really to the crucial question of how to secure peace, where in Germany politics led and public opinion followed. In the 1950s, joining NATO, rearming, was not popular, but it was a political decision in order to secure the future of the country. In the 1980s, when we had discussions about stationing American nuclear weapons in Germany, it wasn't popular at all.
But it needed to be done.
But it needed to be done, and there was leadership in the Chancellery, and it happened. And so I think we are at another crucial turn. So regardless of short-term polling, we should do much more to help us build a common European defense and help Ukraine prevail in the Russian war against it.
So just to America, to end with this transatlantic item, because we are quite transatlantic here.
Yeah.
You know, Vincentas family is from America, 1/3 of my nation is in America. But do you think, you know, we will get Americans back on board, or they will be just diverted to, you know, Indo-Pacific region, and maybe it's time to seriously build European defense policy like we did with energy policy? I still remember Chancellor Schröder, you know, was doing something different, but then we moved to this big common energy policy, and that saved Lithuanian souls. We disconnected from Russians, we're happy and rich. So why don't we move to this more serious defense policy, to have our own budget, to have our own policy, not only borrow money? Is it contradictory to our transatlantic policies or not?
First of all, it's high time to say sorry for our friends here in Lithuania and for the Baltic countries, because we had to listen to our friends here more carefully. That was a big mistake, not just a German one, but also a French one and others. We sounded very arrogant and sometimes a bit selfish if it comes to Nord Stream 2 and other huge projects. But that brings me back to the United States and to the transatlantic relations. We shouldn't forget that also President Obama's message was very clear to the Europeans. You take more leadership for your own continent, because we are much more involved, much more focused into the Indo-Pacific area. So Trump is not the first United States president, but now the situation is extremely challenging, and it's extremely pressing for all of us, because we wasted our time with abstract discussions about security, and now we have to deliver in times of war, and this is extremely important. I think we did our homework if it comes to finances. Because it's not an excuse anymore that we don't have the money to spend more for deterrence, defensiveness, more in a modern army to fulfill our obligations in NATO, but also to fulfill our commitments to our own society. So transatlantic relations are in a quite tense moment, but at the end, I'm completely convinced that we have to do more, but it takes time. It takes time, and I'm not quite sure if all our friends and allies within the European Union got the message.
That's a good point. And talking about time, your current government coalition has been in power for less than 6 months, I'd say, right? Something around 6 months, let's say.
The election of the Chancellor was in May.
In May, right. And since then, do you think there has been sufficient energy and progress put into rearming Germany and fulfilling those very commitments that you just mentioned?
That was one of my last decisions in the German Bundestag, and I was very proud for it. We changed our constitution after very controversial issues. I know that was also not so easy for our new coalition partner, but then I left politics, but I was very grateful to send this clear message. But implementation of Zeitenwende is quite challenging. We did a lot, but I expect more, and it's up to the new coalition, it's up to the new government. But my impression is there is room for improvement. I'm not really happy with the decision about military service. I'm more in line with you, because at the end we need a compulsory military service. This is a compromise, and I respect this compromise, because without compromises it wouldn't work. But at the end, I'm not quite sure if we again waste too much time for a compromise which is not sufficient enough to cope or to deal with the challenges of the present and the future.
If I may build on that, I think we have to make a very fundamental decision, and that is, do we prioritize political sensitivities or real-world problems? I'm of course not naive. I understand that for politics you need majorities, and so people have to vote for something in the end. But if we talk about something as fundamental for future as security and peace in Europe, I think it is time that we take a leap of faith and courage and do more on conscription. We certainly are doing a lot already on material. I had the privilege of voting for 2 budgets, or will vote for the second budget, the one for 2026, in the upcoming weeks, in which we will have record investments to our military. We really will rebuild our military industrial capacity in a way that I think helps not just German security but European security, because once we have these capacities in place, they will be able to serve also other allied militaries, not just ours. But on personnel, I think we have to be more ambitious. That's a long-standing opinion, not just of myself, but of the entire young generation of Christian Democrats.
Can I ask some a bit different question, but it's very important for us because we are just facing something you've been facing for some time. Radicalization of societies, anti-Semitism that is growing in Lithuania, and your parties made kind of cordon sanitaire for that, you know. Is it good or bad? Because some say, oh, it's bad because AfD is growing. Our government, Social Democrat, they embraced radicals. You know, our Social Democratic government has coalition with 2 ECR parties and 1 anti-Semitic party. That is kind of strange. And we have chaos in Lithuania for 1 year, to be honest. So what's better? And I didn't talk about Hungarian radicalism. Can you imagine Hungarian foreign minister was here before he traveled twice to Lukashenko, and he met with this anti-Semitic party, and they more or less shake their hands and wrote some memorandum of understanding. So they are dividing us and more or less dragging to the Lukashenko side. So how to deal with those, you know, radicals inside societies? Is the German side still the best? Maybe it's time for Christian Democrats and Social Democrats to do the same in Lithuania, or we need to embrace them and, I don't know, swallow, educate.
Sigis, you already know that I send a very clear message to my comrades and to my Social Democratic friends here in your country, that collaboration with an anti-Semitic party is an absolute red flag for all of us. And it was a very disappointing moment for me to take notice that this is a serious issue for friends, political friends. And that brings me back to Germany. It's not so easy for center-right and also center-left parties, because it's a huge challenge for all of us. Not just the Conservatives, but also the Social Democratic Party in Germany lost many, many votes. We lost core voters, workers, for instance. Never in German history such a small number of traditional workers voted for Social Democrats. That is, this is another wake-up call. But it's not so easy. At the end, for me personally, a cooperation with an extremely far-right, a populist party is an absolute red flag. It's unacceptable for me, but that bears a special responsibility for center-right and center-left parties. And that's why I'm not so happy with the management of the government and the coalition right now, because we made very bad experiences with the disaster of the failure of the so-called traffic light cooperation or coalition, Social Democrats, Liberal Party and the Greens. And now I very much hope that Social Democrats and Conservatives, CDU, CSU in Germany take the responsibility to deliver ambitious results if it comes to economy, social inclusion, but also if it comes to foreign and security policy. That's key. It's not easy, but it's never a smart strategy to copy populists. It's never a good. But honestly, we are extremely under pressure.
Johannes, what do you think?
Well, I think discussions about a cordon sanitaire, they must not become a political plaything. You know, in Germany, it's often it has almost become an issue of political gamification, that it's used as a rhetorical tool in everyday debates, and I think it's far too serious for that. And the way that Manfred Weber deals with this by saying there have to be 3 criteria in order to have a structured cooperation with someone, which is they have to be pro-European at heart or pro-Western, they have to be pro-Ukraine or in the systemic confrontation between dictatorships and democracies on the side of democracies, and they have to stand on the rule of law, and I would probably put, you know, being not anti-Semitic or having ethno-nationalist idea also in that bucket. And these are the 3 red lines that define the acceptable political spectrum for me. But at the same time, we also have to recognize that when it comes to a national German discourse, certain things about migration policy, about the economy, they are addressed by the far right in a way that most voters consider more honest, and that's why they're so appealing. And I think we need to become problem solvers in these categories in order to regain the trust of voters.
But this all sounds well and good, and I do believe that, you know, the current ruling coalition in Germany is already showing results, but are we not beyond that? Maybe I'm naive, but I'm afraid that just pure populist communication can destroy any logic, right? And it seems that no matter what, you know, what is being done in Germany, the AfD keeps getting more and more popular, keeps winning more and more regional and seats in the Länder parliaments. You know, is this the last fight, you know, to keep pro-Western Germany, is it possible that AfD could actually win the next election? And that's our biggest fear.
Well, I would start out with the observation that I don't think populists have a magic wand which they can put spells on the population and suddenly they are all bewitched. If you look to Denmark, you have a very successful example of how moderates can, with good policies, bring back trust to the political center. And I think if we adopt these policies in Germany, we are able to demobilize parts of the AfD electorate. I think they're far from winning an absolute majority on a federal level, certainly, and so their pathway to power would have to be in a coalition with others. So as long as the political center holds and very clearly delineates what I just said, it is unacceptable to cooperate with anti-European parties, with parties who serve Putin, there is no credible pathway to power for the AfD. And for me, being from the party of Konrad Adenauer, who set Germany on its Western path, a social market economy, a European path, it is unimaginable to betray that legacy.
Do you agree? Do you think that the political center in Germany is holding and will hold?
I very much hope, but it's getting more and more difficult because we are too weak. And if it comes to the state elections, the upcoming state elections in the Eastern German Länder, I'm not quite sure about the outcome. So we have to deliver, but unfortunately, in my opinion, it's not just a matter of policies. It's a cultural battlefield. That is the problem. So it's more about emotions than just the content of political measures, and that makes it so difficult for rational politicians, because it's more an emotional thing. You have to touch not just the minds, but also the hearts of the people. And this, I think, was the big problem of the previous governments, the Merkel government, the Scholz government, because they could never touch the hearts and minds both of the people. But yeah, it's a European phenomenon, and liberal democracy everywhere is under pressure. And I'm not quite sure if all my former colleagues understood what it really means for liberal democracy. Because liberal democracy is not a nitty-gritty issue. That is the heart of our guiding principle. This is the essence of our constitutional understanding. This is the essence of Germany. This is the essence of other European countries. And that's why I'm extremely concerned also about the developments in France, in Spain, in other countries. So this is a very good example of Johannes. Denmark. In Denmark, social democrats could solve one of the most emotional, very sensitive controversies, migration. Yeah, with very restrictive measures, far beyond of traditional social democratic understanding, but it worked. But I'm not quite sure if just restrictive measures, if it comes to migration policy, will solve this fundamental problem. It goes deeper. It goes far deeper.
Can I end our conversation with two foreign policy questions, one big and one smaller? Ukraine, its membership in EU and NATO, it's our, raison d'être here. We want to save their souls because only then we will be safe in the Baltics. And then Belarus. Trump administration is currently playing again this appeasement game with Lukashenko, release of prisoners, maybe even in exchange of, giving up some sanction regimes. And we don't like it because we saw all those videos. We do not believe that it's possible to detach Lukashenko from Putin because everybody tried in this region. What do you think, can we, first of all, Ukraine, can we save them with the EU and NATO? We have agreed till, 2030 maybe. Hungarian problem with start of negotiations, and Belarus. What do you think about them?
Sigis, if it comes to EU and NATO perspective of Ukraine, we are on the same page, but we also have to take into consideration that there is a lot of skepticism, not just in Germany, but also in other European countries. So I was not really happy with the so-called compromise of the last NATO summits, because the Ukrainians need a very clear message, and it's a merit-based way. It's not a gift. It's not a generous gift from the Europeans or from the United States. And don't forget, also the Trump administration is extremely and remains extremely skeptical if it comes to NATO perspective. But at the end, I think the people in Ukraine need a clear say it's worth it to fight. It's worth it not to give up. But right now, a more ambitious military and political support of Ukraine is I think is more crucial right now, because the situation in Ukraine is quite difficult, and at the end the corruption issue made it also quite difficult for allies, friends of Ukraine, like we all are, to send a message. We have to continue on our way. So I very much hope that the Ukrainian friends can solve their domestic problems very soon, and that they can send clear messages to all of us. Because never forget, we are already on war. Disinformation campaigns intoxicates the political climate in Germany. Fortunately, just a minority of our society still do believe in these Russian smear campaigns and Russian propaganda. But at the end, we have to take it very serious. So what we really need is action on our side, but also on our Ukrainian friends' side.
Here's to that, and thank you once again for agreeing to be part of this podcast and for your wonderful insights from, well, I'll say it just this once, but the new Washington from Berlin. It is much appreciated, and thank you for being in Lithuania.
Just one question on Belarus, if I
Oh yes,
come back.
yeah.
Sorry. What
Johannes
do you
is an
think?
expert.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I continue to be very sympathetic to the Belarusian democracy movement. The white, red and white flag is a symbol for their courage, and especially for the young people who took to the streets in 2020. Lukashenko's regime is complicit in all Russia's crimes against Ukraine, against peace, against the European order. And so I think a good pathway for the future of Belarus is one in which this country chooses its leader by free and fair elections and not at the barrel of a gun.
Okay, friends, thank you so much. We'll continue those discussions in our forum, and really thanks for coming, and thanks for understanding, and thanks for hearing us.
We should come more often.
Yes.
That is the problem.
We certainly should listen more often.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Great.
Take care.
Na, tikiuosi jums ši serija patiko, man ypač. Tokia trumpa refleksija būtų, kad senai nesame turėję tokio gero, galima sakyti, europietiško pokalbio tarp žmonių, kurie ir šventai tiki europietiškų projektų, kurie šventai tiki mūsų žemyno ir mūsų civilizacijos laisvę ir poreikiu mums kovoti prieš blogį, prieš Rusiją, prieš autokratiją ir viso to šešėlį. Tad vėlgi, tikiuosi, kad patiko, įsitraukite į mūsų diskusiją, į pokalbį, komentuokite, prenumeruokite ir iki sekančio kartą. Iki.